Winters are coming, and some people have the question of, should I use heat cables, or also known as heat tape, in my gutters or at the edges of my roof? So this video is going to help you decide whether or not you should use heat cables. I'll also be going over the differences in different kinds of heat cables and how effective they are in different circumstances. Hey, and by the way, if you like this video or the content on my channel, I'd love to have you like, comment, and subscribe, and you can get more great content like this about roofing and home exteriors. So if this is the issue that you're looking to address, watch through to the end, and this will be helpful for making that decision. First, I want to kind of go over the basics of how we get ice damming on the roof in the first place. You'll see here I have a super simple sketch. So what happens is, let's say it's 28 degrees outside. It's freezing and you have snow falling on the roof. And here's what happens is you have warm air going up from your dwelling through the attic space. Even if your attic is insulated, there's a bit of warm air and hitting the underside of the roof. Well, what happens is right now when it's cold up there, you have this snow on the roof that's cold, but as that heat rises through the house and hits the bottom of the roof, it begins to heat that up. The snow or ice on the roof melts and runs down to the edge of your roof. And then it clogs up along the gutter here and refreezes. Now, a couple of things to think about. One is we should try to mitigate that heat loss as much as possible. So if you have a big problem with ice damming at the bottom of your roof and big icicles and so forth, you should actually be thinking about insulation in your attic space, because really a well-insulated house should have an attic space. When it's freezing outside, your attic space should be freezing as well, so that you don't have that heat loss and you can keep that snow and ice on the roof from melting and running down to the edge. It should stay on the roof more instead of creating big ice dams down here. So instead of just thinking about heat cables right away to mitigate what's down here, let's go a little bit further back and say, all right, why is the water all running down and damming at the bottom in the beginning? It's because I have too much heat loss going up through the attic space. So think about getting your attic space cooler if it is just a true, non-finished attic, so that you don't have that water running down off the roof and refreezing. Some people just get heat cables and stick them in their gutters, or just on the bottom edge of the roof. And so typically what happens is if you have a heat cable, it's going to run like in a zigzag pattern kind of on the exterior part of this roof. So anything from the wall out to the edge, and it's going to run something like this, 2 or 3 feet up the roof, back and forth, and then also in the gutters. Now it's important that if you have heat cable on the roof, you also have it in the gutters, because if it's only on the roof and not the gutters, what you're doing in effect is causing the same problem just down further. So it might help with ice damming and snow here, but then as soon as that hits the cold gutter, if the gutter is not heated, it's going to refreeze and cause issues in your gutter. Now, a heat cable is not going to keep this part of the roof completely free of ice, unfortunately. And that's why I want to go back to this issue. We need to solve our insulation issue so that we can prevent so much water running down there to freeze. Because the fact of the matter is, at 20 degrees or lower, even sometimes 25, the heat cable is not going to keep this completely clean. It's going to create little pathways through the ice. So wherever the cable is, there's going to be, a section of maybe 1 inch or 2 inches, kind of like a tunnel through the ice. So water will be able to flow down through there. And as long as you have heat cables in the gutter, it'll keep it from refreezing there, and it'll allow that to go through the gutter and drain down through the downspout. That being said, you also want to make sure that your heat cable actually goes down through the downspout the whole way to the ground, so that water doesn't freeze in the downspout, causing problems in backing up. So, obviously these are electric, and it can be noticeable on your electric bill. I'll say that if you're running these for days on end to try to get ice to melt. Again, trying to get an entire ice sheet to melt with cables, probably not going to happen. The biggest thing is turn them on early so you can get a head start and kind of get the surfaces warmed up. Don't wait until you have a big ice dam and then turn them on. Now, even with that being the case, if you live in a really cold climate, you can turn them on in advance and still end up having some ice damming and snow down here. So a couple of tips. There are 2 kind of main types of heating cables. One has a constant wattage and one is a variable wattage. So the constant wattage cables, you plug it in, it's a plug and play, and at whatever wattage or heat it runs is what it's going to do. It's not going to increase or decrease. There's also variable wattage, which you can buy. It's more expensive, and it typically can't be found in a big box store. gutter company, a roofing company can get you something like this, but that will actually kind of regulate itself, a self-regulating heat cable. So as the temperature drops, it'll take more energy and get warmer and warmer. Now, it's never going to get hot enough to cause a fire or cause damage to your shingles or your gutter or anything like that, but the self-regulated cables do allow you to kind of get more melted in the same amount of time. This is also why ice and water shield on a roof replacement is important, because whenever you have ice damming here, you do jeopardize the roof system if it's not properly installed. So you can watch my other video about why ice and water shield is important and how that works. So there you have it, heat cables, heat tape. Is it effective? It can be if you've got really cold weather and a lot of snow and ice. It's going to be limited. Even the best heat cable is not going to completely melt your ice dams. But if you turn it on early, if you use self-regulated cable and you have it, zigzagged in a pretty tight pattern, then this should significantly reduce your problems with icicles and ice dams forming at the bottoms and in the valleys of your roof. So I hope that's helpful and can help you make a decision on what kind of heat cable to get.